I've had people ask me about how to use the lace molds that I sell in my Etsy shop. So I went ahead and did this little video to show you some of the techniques that I personally use. First, you want to use something that's a little stiff as opposed to a really soft fondant. This is a gum paste, and even a little bit of fondant with some Tylose in it that will firm it up will help. You don't want it to be too stiff because then it won't pick up the details of the mold very well. But if it's really soft and you try to take the fondant out of this mold, it's going to stretch and you'll lose all the detail of it. So start with a little bit, and I've already filled this in because this takes a while. This is a large mold. If it's something like this that has a lot of spaces in between the detail, you can either take one piece and just slap it on there and do the whole thing, or if you want to keep this opening, just do it this way that I'm doing here. Put a little piece here. This is greased up pretty well with Crisco. I have a little can of Crisco over here that you can't see, it's off camera. But if you press this in, this should work pretty well. You can either keep your fingers greased with the Crisco, and that's just shortening. I'm not sure if you're in another country other than the US you have Crisco. Or if it's sticking to your finger, just take some plastic wrap and wrap your finger up, and that will keep it from sticking to your finger. If you have latex gloves, you can use those. I personally am not a big fan of the gloves, just because they feel awkward. But as long as it stops the fondant and the gum paste from sticking to your finger, that'll be fine. Alright, so fill in all the details. Here's a little gap here. Just want to make sure everything is filled in that you want to fill in. You can always go back later with a knife and cut out, if there's little extra sections, you can cut it out once you take it out of the mold. But if you fill in as much as you can here, it'll just save you a little work later. Alright, so once you have the whole thing filled in, the trick with these larger molds, and really any of them, you don't want to take the fondant or the gum paste out of the mold, you want to take the mold off of the fondant. So turn it over and just peel this off, leaving the mold where it is. Alright, so now you've got all the detail. This mold had a little bit of an issue right here, so this isn't one that I'm selling, it's just a demo one. But you can see all the detail on it, and you really have to press pretty hard in there to get it. If you take some luster dust and dust this over, it'll pick up all the higher parts, and that'll make it more obvious too. Alright, so now I'm going to trash this because it's a demo and I can use it again. Alright, now see, this is dried out a little bit because it was in the mold, so just take some Crisco. Shortening and gum paste work very well to soften. And I've seen those lace molds, they have that dab stuff, and it just looks to me like it's basically really soft gum paste that will dry. If you put the shortening in the gum paste, it will dry. And it just might take a little bit longer, but don't put water in it, it'll just make it into glue. But shortening it makes it kind of spreadable, it's really weird. And yet it still dries. Alright, now this kind of lace is a Venice lace, and it's more woven as opposed to having the beading and that kind of stuff on it. So it's going to give you a different texture. With this it's more of a one piece. The smaller molds are a little easier to deal with. So just fill this in. Alright, just press it out. Again, if it starts to stick to your fingers, you can take the plastic wrap and wrap it around, but this isn't doing that to me today, so I don't need to do that. Alright, now you do want this to be relatively flat on the back, and this is kind of bumpy because I have a lot of gum paste in there. So you can always take some scissors and just kind of cut flat, remove some of this stuff, and then go back, press it in again. Just make sure the whole thing is in the mold. Okay, and again, put that flat on the table, the work surface, and take the mold off of the fondant or the gum paste. Alright, so instead of having this stuck in here and then you try to pull it out and you stretch it and it gets all distorted, doing it that way will keep the shape. And if you want to be really precise about it, you can go in with an X-Acto knife afterward and just cut out around the shape. You might want to let this set up a little bit to dry, because I'm really pressing on this, and this is pretty stiff gum paste. But if it is fondant, it's going to soften if you're starting to touch the pattern. So let it set up just a little bit, just right around in here. Anywhere that you pressed gum paste into and you don't want there to be any, cut it away. I'll give you the better. And if you want to, you can go in, if you want to see the icing through the lace, just do that. So you can cut all these holes out. You can be really detailed about it, or you can just leave it as it is. If you're going to overpipe it, leaving it as it is usually okay, because the texture will be raised farther off the lace. But if you do cut the holes out, see, then you'll be able to see the color. So if you're doing like a colored icing and then the white lace on top of it, that'll give you a nice contrast. So those are just some basic tips. These lace molds are not hard to use. Some people have trouble with them because especially the larger ones have so much detail on them that you really have to work to get the gum paste down into the mold and pick up all the detail. So it does take a little bit of time, but the key, like I said, flip it over and peel this off the gum paste, not the gum paste out of the mold. And there you have it.